In the most recent Valorant patch, Riot might have secretly made a major mistake in buffing this one agent. ISO received a massive buff that many claim is literally breaking ranked right now in the high levels of play. Now, is this something that players can adapt to and overcome, or is this a fundamental game design error that needs instant balance adjustment? In patch 8.11, Riot made several changes and additions, including a new map Abyss and the buffing and nerfing of several agents. Among them, under the radar, was ISO, who has historically been dubbed one of the weakest agents in the game. He got several changes, but among them a seemingly small change: the capability to use double tap, his ability to cover himself in an overshield that lets you ignore one singular source of damage at any time. Now you see, before, ISO required a kill to enable double tap first, which meant a huge part of its value was tied to entry fragging, one of the hardest things to do, especially without powerful utility. Now, ISO doesn't need a kill to get that value, and that coincidentally makes it much easier to get that first kill. It creates a domino effect, where now ISO can take early duels with enemies and have an instant advantage from the get-go. Now, the strength doesn't just stop there. It fundamentally changes how ISO can approach every single round and his overall playstyle. From straight challenging ops to getting multiple low-risk, high-reward peaks, ISO at its worst can be frustrating to deal with, and at its best can be ranked meta-defining. Now, are these claims overblown? Is ISO really that powerful, or are there ways to counter or adapt to him? Well, right now, not everyone agrees with him being dubbed overpowered. Many players say a simple source of damage is easy to create. Leg shots, abilities, and simply shooting someone twice, it's not much different than fighting people with slightly more health, armor, or better weapons. At least this is the prevalent argument that people are making. And I do think that there is some fundamental truth to this, as it's not impossible to deal with an ISO, especially as a team with proper trades. He still needs to reshoot orbs to re-engage the shield, so 2v1s are still very effective versus him, and even more so than they would be versus Arena, for instance, who has the ability to dismiss away after that first kill. That being said, a good ISO can force advantaged fights often, and it can compound over an entire game where he gets many advantaged fights every single round. This is also where lower elo versus higher elo players are being affected by ISO differently. The state of a higher rank with a more disciplined crosshair placement, better aim overall, and more intentional ability use means that surviving a single headshot is often just a one fight. If you are a really great mechanical player, you can keep taking 60, 40, or better gunfights, which means that you already have an on-paper advantage because of ISO's abilities. And if you're already above average mechanically for your rank, you're going to naturally take over an entire game because you're going to be taking crazy advantage gunfights over and over and over again. And combine that with ability use from your teammates, and it can really become impossible for enemies to win certain fights. Now, this also compounds with his ability use, where now being able to take a duel instantly with ult and have shields already is a dramatic boost in power level that means that you are extremely likely to win ult duels with more cover and a shield. Now, because of this massive increase in double tap's power level, it dramatically increases the power of the entire character's kit, and it's so strong to the point it will warp your games around a talented ISO player. Now, that still leaves two major questions. Number one, is this character strong enough to see meta or pro play? While he's doing a ton in ranked right now, is this enough to push him over the edge to go from a character that doesn't really see any pro play to an established character that sees a ton of it? While ISO does seem very strong, he also seems selfish. He has the ability to generate really great looks and advantage fights, but there are many other characters that do that while simultaneously being able to fulfill something important for their team. Think of a character like Jett, for instance, that can still create space on a site, dash in, and create eco advantages for their team. It's not just the same as someone that has the capability to frag out and have a lot of advantage fights. Now, there is an argument to be made that this is the most extreme example of something that gives you an advantage in a 1v1. We have not gotten anything quite like this. The ability to literally tank a headshot and still win a fight is something that we've just not seen, and it is possible that something becomes so strong to the point that it forces its way into pro play, even if it breaks a lot of the rules of what traditionally goes into pro play with teamwork and cohesion. Like, regardless of what character we're talking about, it's always possible to power creep them enough to where they're just too strong to not play. And while I don't think that ISO is there, it is important that just flat power level can actually overcome many of the other objective qualities you see when you see a pro match and the compositions that are played there. At the end of the day, ISO is still a very selfish agent, and this leads me to believe that while this character might be experimented with in his current state, he probably won't make a serious dent in pro play. But the real question we should be asking is this character too strong or just strong? The nature of him makes him stronger in ranked, where there's less teamwork and cohesion, and he's going to be stronger at higher elo, where you're going to be able to take very specific duels, and the type of duels you're giving to enemies are decided within a very small window of time. At the same time, though, ISO was incredibly weak before, really just a secondary option or a third or fourth option compared to many of the other ranked duelists in the game. Not even talking about meta picks, just characters that you could play and run it down, and this has actually given him a strong power level while still not destroying his character identity, and it might be too soon to reel this back, even if he seems overly powerful right now, because there's still a chance that players need time to adapt to this character. Now, there are also other ways to nerf him that doesn't change this fundamentally. You can make his ultimate more expensive, you can make his abilities harder to trigger, or you can make it so he can't actually re-enable multiple shields over and over and over again. I think there's a lot of ways to change him fundamentally that still keeps this core strength intact, because without this strength, he's really going to go back to being a very niche, weak character relative to a lot of other characters in the game. Basically, ISO has gone through a massive power adjustment that many are finding hard to deal with. And while he was really weak before, this might not be the best way to buff him for competitive integrity, but once again, it does make him strong in a way that maintains his core identity without any massive reworks or changes. Now, whether he needs a small nerfs to a massive retraction / hotfix, it's going to be up to your individual opinions. But for now, ISO is here, and to counteract him, you might want to start forcing ability damage, better 2v1s, and information gathering if you want to still thrive in this meta. It's actually kind of interesting because in a way, good ISO counterplay encourages good Valorant habits in the first place. And the best place to learn those is here at Gosu Academy. We run a bootcamp with many of the top coaches in the Valorant space that will help you think deeply about the game and become a much better player. If you enjoy the content, subscribe and check out Gosu Academy in the links down below.